Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, and welcome to a very special preview of the 2024 Japan Cup taking place late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, depending on where you live. Could be a little bit different, but this is going to be a really fun race. I have a Japanese horse racing specialist, Alex Henry from In the Money Media, to join me to talk about this race. But before we get into that, I want to remind you to press that like and subscribe button today. NYRA Bets YouTube, it's your one-stop destination for all things horse racing and handicapping. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel. And just this weekend alone, we have a full card analysis of Churchill Downs on Saturday. We have stakes previews at Aqueduct. We have a late pick 5 preview with Gino Piccola at Del Mar. And like I said, we're even covering the races taking place in Japan this weekend. So really, we got everything you need in addition to handicapping and betting tutorials to make sure that you are a better horse player. Well, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Japan Cup, which has so many interesting storylines, including, and perhaps most importantly, it will be the final race of Aidan O'Brien's Auguste Rodin, who, of course, we saw win last year's Breeders' Cup Turf. Going to be a lot of fun to see this one go out in the Japan Cup. And like I said, joining me today is Alex Henry, who I go to for all things Japanese racing, as she knows that circuit as well as anyone. So, Alex, thank you so much for coming and joining me today and talking about this really exciting race.
Thank you for having me, Matt. It's always a pleasure to be on with you and mega pleasure to talk about JRA racing. Really great weekend coming up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's okay to be with me, but when we add the JRA in, that's even better. So listen, the Japan Cup. I mean, the casual North American racing fan might not be quite as familiar with this race as others internationally. You know, I think a lot of times people might know about Royal Ascot or about Longchamp, and everything goes on over in France with the Arc de Triomphe and things like that. But this is one of, if not the most preeminent race in Japan, and we saw obviously last year Equinox win this race.
Indeed, I'm actually repping an Equinox t-shirt. I'll stand up so you can see a little bit of it,
Love it.
from last year. But yeah, this is the marquee international race on the JRA circuit. As some may know, JRA is pretty exclusionary when it comes to international horses competing in their turf racing. They like to keep it to their own Japanese contingent. But this race was created in 1981 for the sole purpose of involving international turf specialists that love running that classic distance of 2,400 meters or roughly 12 furlongs on the right-handed turf course at Tokyo. So it's going to be an amazing race. We've had some amazing past winners, some champions, generational champions win this race. So looking forward to seeing who can get it done this weekend.
Absolutely. No, and I will just say, first of all, I feel a little bit old because I'm actually older than the race. I was born in 1980, so it got me beat by a year. Second, I also feel old because I remember last year going to bed early and then setting my alarm on my phone just so I could wake up in the middle of the night to place a massive bet on Equinox, even though it made me like $5. It did not matter. I was just like, I'm betting this horse's race and to watch the race. So a thrilling race as always. And we have a tremendous field of 14 drawing into this. And you see a lot of really interesting names. Obviously, like I said, Auguste Rodin, interestingly enough, of course, has that connection to Japan, sired by Deep Impact, who's a great Japanese horse. And so it's so interesting to see, the connection there. But you go through this field and you see a horse like Goliath and Deuce and Cervinia and even a younger horse like Shin Emperor. There's a lot of intriguing horses in this race. What are your thoughts when you look at this, knowing that there's a chance Auguste Rodin actually might be the third or fourth choice in this race potentially?
You're totally right. I mean, at least in the Japanese pools, he may be the second favorite or even a favorite briefly when the gates open in the US pools, because our pools are separate than the JRA pools.
Yeah.
When it comes to Auguste Rodin, I like his chances a lot. I've spoken about him this past week very highly. One thing I kind of noted on his form cycle is that he tends to run, when we're talking about thoroughbred, for example, that like pair off or like top off,
Yeah.
that kind of form cycle. He tends to pair and then run an off race.
Yes.
If you look at his form, it looks like he's on the second pair of the form cycle, which has me hopeful because he did perform well last time out. He wasn't disgraced in the Irish Champion Stakes, finishing second. And before that, he did finish a dull fifth. He faded in the stretch in the King George and Queen Elizabeth II Cup at Ascot. So on that basis alone, I expect him to have a top effort. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, being by the venerable, one of my favorite Japanese racehorse, Deep Impact. He has that affinity for the Japanese turf. Deep Impact himself having won this race in 2006. So there's no excuse if he's ready and if he's right, he should account well for himself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see Aidan O'Brien over there right now as well, taking in all of the festivities and all of the surroundings, and very jealous of Aidan. I'd love to get over there to see it. You've been over there. I don't know, were you at Tokyo, or which track were you at when you were over there?
I was at Nakayama Racecourse.
Oh,
So,
okay, that's right.
but
Yep.
beautiful, still beautiful racecourse. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now it is interesting. Travel is always a question mark when you're dealing with horses. You and I were, out at Del Mar, and got to hang out a little bit, which was very nice. And we talk about the Japanese horses coming over to Del Mar. They didn't perform maybe quite as well this year. Travel is always a concern. But you rarely ever see it the other way, where American horses are going to Japan because of, like you said, it's a rather exclusionary circuit in some ways, particularly on the turf. And so we saw a horse like Charin just recently, last week, kind of fade to fifth and not really make much of an impact. And Charin, elite horse. So I do think there's always a question of, how does a horse that's an international traveler just acclimate physically to the new surroundings? And that's unfortunately not something we typically know until the gates open in a lot of instances. But it does seem like Auguste Rodin has been working out well on site.
That is true. He has been working out well on site. And with an outfit like Aidan O'Brien's entire team, he wouldn't be there if he wasn't ready and right. I don't, looking back, I know the last British trained horse to win the Japan Cup was Alcaced, and that was in 2005. But he was trained by Luca Kamani. So I don't believe. Yeah, looking at my notes, I don't see. Aiden hasn't trained a winner in Japan, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen this weekend.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But it's the travel, the feed. If is the horse in the feed tub, is he eating up well?
Yeah.
If he's on track, you would like to think yes, that's the case. I don't think he'd be on track if he's looking emaciated and kind of tucked up and dehydrated. So by all accounts, he's doing very well. And perhaps he's breathing the air of his father's homeland and is like, yeah, this feels good. This feels right. Maybe I'll run big this weekend.
Exactly. It's like me when I landed in Italy the first time. I was like, these are my people. Okay. I feel, yeah, exactly. I can't speak the language a lick, but I feel at home here. Well, listen, let's not just talk about Auguste Rodin. Let's talk about some of these other horses, because there are fantastic horses in this race. I mentioned Goliath. I mentioned Deuce. I mentioned Cervinia. Interested, out of some of those likely top choices in the Japanese pool, as you mentioned, which of those are you most interested in? Which is maybe most intriguing to you from both a betting and handicapping standpoint?
Well, from that lot, and I can kind of speak to the current prices in the Japanese pools at least. And I know, as we spoke of earlier, the Japanese pools do differ from the US pools, but shouldn't be that different. So currently sitting as a favorite at 2.7 decimal odds, according to netkeba.com, is Deuce. And then second choice is Cervinia at 5.2. Third favorite is Justin Palace at 5.9. And Auguste Rodin is actually gone down. He was sitting at like 11.5, 11.9 earlier in the week. Now he's at 9.4, so below double digits now as the fourth favorite. And now Goliath has had the biggest plunge of all. He was at like 25.0, 21.0. Now, as of right now, he's sitting at fifth choice at 11.0. So significant interest increasing, which actually increases my confidence in him. We can speak about him a little bit later. But of the horses you listed, Cervinia for me is the one that I'm most interested in seeing how she performs. The reason is because she was very highly regarded 2-year-old filly. They gave her a break. She needed a break between her win and the Grade 3 Artemis Stakes as a 2-year-old in October. They elected to train up to the first jewel of the Philly Triple Crown, the Oka Show, which is run the first weekend in April. She unfortunately faded pretty badly to finish 13th out of a field of 18. Completely just blew her load. Although Christophe Lemaire was supposed to ride her, but he had that spill at Dubai, so he was unable to take the mount.
Yeah.
She did, although her jockey that she did get, Muzabarev from Kazakhstan, he's very capable. It's no excuse. So I think she was just a really short filly. And they realized that, trained her hard up into the Japanese Oaks, which she won that handily. There was never a doubt. And again, that Oaks is run over 2,400 meters, 12 furlongs, roughly mile and a half, can translate as needed the distance. But she won emphatically as a second choice. Again, repeated that after a break in the last jewel of the Philly Triple Crown, the Shuka Show, in this October. And her speed figures are trending the right way as well. She's doing it the right way. No major jumps that would cause for concern. According to her Netkiba time index, which is the speed figures I typically use, and it seems like those speed figures are about 8 to 10 points higher than a Bayer speed figure that you would see in the States. She received a 101 in the Japanese Oaks, and then followed that up in October with a 114 in the Shuka Show. So that's a nice jump, but still, I wouldn't call that a worrisome jump. And there's tons of room for upside. And fillies like Vodka, like Almond Eye had a similar trajectory as well coming into this race. So if she fires, I think she could definitely put herself in the top 3, if not the winner's circle.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about her for a few reasons. One, she's only 3, and 2, she's a she. And so, it's, 3-year-old fillies running against obviously older males, not something we usually see here in the United States. But as you mentioned, other examples over in the history of this race and over in Japan, where the sexes run against each other much more often and compete against each other. And the 3-year-olds are not maybe quite as age restricted as they are here in the United States sometimes. So Cervinia, I think, absolutely has a big chance. And I agree with you, that upward trajectory, I mean, from a handicapping standpoint, that's what I like to see. Not a massive jump, but a steady progression. And I think, just like we talked about with Auguste Rodin, he can throw in a clunker every once in a while, and it usually is coming off the bench in some ways. And when her first out this year, which was disappointing. Again, I'm willing to just kind of draw a line through that race in a lot of ways and go, okay, the next 2 were just so, like you said, no doubt about it type of efforts. Now, on the other side of things, you have a horse like Deuce, who's, I feel like, been around for a while, who is a much more established figure in this area. You mentioned is currently the betting favorite. What are your thoughts on a horse like Deuce? Is he a good favorite, or is he a favorite you're going to be interested in playing against?
That's a great question. So I'll caveat and say this. According to the stats of the Japan Cup, favorites win the race the majority of the time. I don't have the exact stat, but it is on Netkiba. It says a major trend is that favorites win this race. So this favorite certainly can't be discounted by any means. Excuse me. So he is deserving. He's a 4-time Grade 1 winner in Japan. He's coming off a win in the Tenno Show Autumn, which is run over 2,000 meters or about 10 furlongs on the turf. He was second choice that day and closed like a freight train. He closed his last 3 furlongs, in 32.5 seconds, which is monster time.
Flying.
Absolutely flying. Yeah, to beat Tastira in that race. So his form is sharp. My only worry is that he doesn't really string 2 big wins together. He only earned about a 110 Netkiba speed figure for that race. Not only, but if he came home that fast, you would kind of like to see something higher, like it's a 117, 118. And the last time he strung 2 wins together was as a 2-year-old when he won a listed. He broke his maiden, then won a listed stake, and then he won the Asahi Futurity Stakes, which is a Grade 1 race at Hanshin. So ever since then, he had big wins in the Japanese Derby, followed that up with a 4th place, and then he won a Grade 2, the Kyoto Kinen, last year in February, and then he didn't run right in the Dubai Turf. not
Right.
mistaken,
Right.
and then followed it up with a dull seventh in the Tenno Show Autumn again. So he just kind of sometimey a little bit. I would love to see him string together two good wins. He's deserving. He deserves his flowers, and he's gotten his flowers before. But to me, it's a little bit of a suspect favorite.
Yeah, no, that's generally the way I feel about him as well. So usually a horse that I feel, there's horses like this that we talk about all the time where you're never on the right side of a horse. And I feel like the Deuce for me is a horse that I'm just never on the right side of. It's like every time I'm like, it's going to be the time. And then that's when that doesn't do well. And then I'm like, all right, I'm out on this horse. And then he wins. And so, I'm just kind of the opposite. You said he's kind of the opposite of like, A B kind of a form. I tend to be A B with him in terms of my betting preferences. And I'm usually not guessing correctly. So you had mentioned Goliath as a horse that took a big drop in the odds from 25-1 now down to close to 10-1 or 11-1. And you had mentioned that gave you a little bit of confidence. I had a feeling maybe you might like this horse a little bit. And so interested in your thoughts on what is currently the fifth choice in the race.
Yes. So, and I will say this too. My thoughts change with the wind sometimes. And I know yesterday I spoke with someone and I said I didn't really like his chances, but that was back when he was really cold on the board and the Japanese public were not supportive. Because
Interesting.
I will say if the Japanese public are not supportive in this race, as we mentioned earlier, favorites tend to win, or at least top three choices tend to
Yeah.
do well in this race. I was concerned that they had seen something in him that maybe someone stateside like me had not seen. But now that he's
Yeah.
dropped, his form speaks for itself. He is a gelding. So, he did win the King George and Queen Elizabeth Stakes, Group 1, excuse me, at Ascot earlier this year. And he was eligible for the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe because he is a
Right.
gelding. So they opted to go to the Prix de Paris instead, which he won emphatically. And or actually no, that race I believe he held on to win. I think he had a break, and actually he held on to kind of just grit it out to win.
Yeah.
But the trainer was quoted in saying, this was the target. This is the race we wanted to win. He's the best horse in the race. I have the best horse. So there's extreme confidence coming from the trainer side here, which can't be discounted. I mean, the French are not too overly expressive with their praise. So I mean,
No.
that must be kind of for something, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so interesting because I remember talking with Matt Chapman from IBTV and everything, a great British racing analyst from At the Races. And Matt prefaced before we talked about the Arc de Triomphe, and he goes, the best horse isn't even running in this race. And he was referencing Goliath. He goes, the rules won't allow for him, obviously, like you said, because of a gelding, to run in the Arc. And, a lot of people had very high opinions. He goes, this would be probably the favorite in the race if he was able to run. And so he is. I mean, I can't wait to see him against this field, obviously. And like you said, it does give you confidence that money is starting to flow in. And as handicappers, we all have opinions, but there's no worse opinion than liking a horse and then seeing the price float up, and you just go, "Oh God, does everybody know something I don't know?" And especially, I think, Alex, to your point, when it's international, when we are 6,000-7,000 miles away from this race. So the people who are on site, the people who are around the horse, the buzz around the track, the buzz around the barns, it's harder for us to hear that sometimes. And it's just, we're kind of analyzing it on the page, looking at race replays, things like that. So to see the odds go down I agree with you, give you some confidence in this spot. Any other horses that you wanted to kind of shout out in this race, or maybe for people to dig into a little bit more?
Absolutely. And I have another price for you.
That's why I love
The
you. So
Yeah, I got you. I got you, Matt. I like another female horse. She's a 5-year-old mare, Stars on Earth, the number
yep.
14. She gets Yuka Kawada in the irons, and currently she's at 11.1 in the Japanese pool. That's definitely going to be a lot higher, if not double, in our US pools, only because of her form alone. She's often the bridesmaid, very infrequently the bride, but her form is just kind of culminating in this magnum opus late in her career, where I think it can come together this weekend. So she's coming off of a disappointing 8th at Meydan and the Dubai Shima Cup. Throw that out. Dubai, toss the Dubai out.
Yes.
She's had she's had several months to recoup from that loss and train up to this race. But previously in 2023, she couldn't do worse than third. She was in the trifecta for every single race of her career before that clunker at Meydan, including a second to Equinox in the Arima Kinen,
Yep.
a third to Equinox in the Japan Cup, a third and to Songline in the Victoria Mile. So she's always been right there. And I think the added distance will be to her benefit. She's handy. She doesn't like to come from too far back, even though she can close well, but she is handy. Her best speed figure was earned in that second place to Equinox in the Arima Kinen at 117 net Keva time index. And she sat second the entire time and just couldn't burst past Equinox once the running got going, but she literally, running line says twos all the way across. So I do like to have a horse on especially my vertical tickets, or I'm sorry, my horizontal and my vertical too, that is handier, because a lot of these Japanese horses do like to sit and wait and pounce, very similar to European and Australian racing. So having a handier mare is an asset. And again, that price should be more towards 18-1, 20-1 in the US pools, because that they'll see that Meydan form, they'll see seconds and thirds. And I feel like she'll be a big long shot come Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. I think particularly in the American pools, this, so many of us are, motivated by a name. And Auguste Rodin has a name, and even Goliath has a little, Deuce. Like, these are horses people are more familiar with. They've seen run. You mentioned Stars on Earth as a horse, just always an honest runner, and reminds me a little bit of a horse I used to always pair up in exactas, Happy Saver. Happy Saver just would run second to Flightline, run second to Life is Good, run second to just all these monsters, but would do it at like 33-1. And I'm like, great, that's a wonderful exacta. I will take that. But I think there's always that chance that, she can break through here. And I agree with you about having a handy horse that's up there on the front end. You never know. And it's one of the things I get frustrated with up here in New York racing and things like that, where when everybody just sits in the back and sits in the back and sits in the back, you don't know what trip you're going to end up getting. And I'd rather have a horse put themselves in a position to be successful early in the race and not have so much work to do and not be reliant on other people around them and what ends up happening. So couldn't agree more in terms of liking to have a couple of different running styles on my tickets a lot of times, so that I'm not relying all on deep closers, or I'm not relying on all horses on the front end, have a little bit of a mix there. So going to be a lot of fun. You had mentioned that your picks maybe change a little bit from time to time with the win. Right now, though, are you looking at Goliath potentially as the horse that you're most interested in putting that win bet on?
In terms of price, it's between Goliath and Stars on Earth for me, and just in terms of pure price. I will just caveat with this. This is a spread race for me. I am a horizontal player, so I play the early pick 5, the middle pick 4, and the late pick 5. And so this race will go off as race 12. And I will be up for it. Come hell or high water, I will stay up for this race. So this will be a spread race for me. I'll probably have about 5 in here, and then I plan to go skinny in race 9. I've been touting a horse, a grandson of War Emblem, who was a horse that had my heart. The first near Triple Crown I ever witnessed. So his name is Shin Hanada, and he is currently the favorite. But if I can get him home and then maybe get a 4th choice, a rare 5th choice, a 6th choice home, and that pick 5 to close out, it'll still pay very well. One more thing I'd like to mention, Matt, just another trend in this race that Netkeva pointed out. It seems like inside draws tend to do best in this race. So the 3 horses drawn inside, as you have on your screen: Goliath, Blow the Horn, and Deuce. So take that, when it may, but Blow the Horn will also be an extremely large price. Let's see, he's sitting here at looks like he's 20.0. So he is sitting really, really high. So 20.0 on the Japanese market is easily 40 to 1 plus on our pools. So it could be worth a win bet there too, for what it's worth.
That's always an interesting trend to know, and particularly when you talk about going a mile and a half, saving ground, always critical, and knowing how the turf course plays at Tokyo as well sometimes in terms of that inside bias. So great stuff, Alex. Really appreciate your knowledge and insight on this. Let the folks know where they can find you and what all you have coming up here in the next few days and weeks.
Absolutely. Please check out X, or AKA Twitter, old Twitter. I'm on there pretty actively. I will be tweeting and retweeting tickets, early pick 5, late pick 5. I really focus on the late pick 5. I think I can, again, find that single in race 9 there. And the middle pick 4, I play it all. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram as well, the same handle at HMLAA. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have some articles coming out on In the Money Media. We have full picks with the team and I, led by Klaus Ebner out of Woodbine. So please check us out, again, In the Money Media. And also we have articles on Horse Racing Nation as well. So yeah, check it out, and always welcome for feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't emphasize this enough. If you're listening, make sure to throw Alex a follow. Always very insightful analysis and really great stuff. And if you are also a little bit of an insomniac and you're going to be up at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Alex and Caitlin Free make me feel better about myself a lot of times, because I have friends who are also up watching racing at 3 o'clock in the morning, whether that be in Japan, Australia, wherever in the Pacific Rim. So Alex, thank you again. Can't wait to be tweeting back and forth with you very late at night on Saturday night or Sunday morning. So it should be a lot of fun. So thank you again for your time, and thank you all for watching and tuning into this episode on NYRA Bets YouTube. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. For Alex Henry, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races, and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.